Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mistake by the Mike podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Rich. We're doing it for the third time, episode number 3. Hey, first of all, I'm not coming to you on Monday. I'm coming to you on Wednesday this week, a little under the weather after the Browns won on Sunday afternoon. So it would have been a victory Monday. It still was a victory Monday. I just didn't get to talk to you that day. So, hey, congrats to the Browns. Shouldn't have been in the position to make the biggest away game comeback in NFL history, but down to 28-3 right before the half, added a touchdown to make it 28-10. Tank Carter gets the big from TCU, gets the big punt block for the safety to make it 28-15 and put the Browns in a position where they did not need a 2-point conversion, and that was awesome. So, again, kudos to the Cleveland Browns, 2-2 headed into a home game with Pittsburgh on October 12th should really shape the season for both teams there. Pittsburgh struggled a little bit, but they've still pulled out some victories. You could argue the same for Cleveland. So that's kind of a big deal. Cincinnati and Baltimore go down to New England on Sunday Night Football. The Bengals are no longer undefeated. The Ravens lose to the Colts. I know in Baltimore they only refer to that team as Indianapolis, but because I have no affiliation with the city of Baltimore, in fact, I'm a little bit I despise the Ravens. I guess that's the right way to put it. But no love lost for the Ravens there. No love lost because the Colts moved to Indianapolis in the middle of the night because they had no problem taking the Browns from Cleveland. Same old story, same old song and dance over and over again. Don't need to go through it again. But bottom line is Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Ravens, all really close in the standings there. AFC North is probably going to go down to the wire, but every game counts, and that's that's why that's the big sale point for college football is that every game matters and every game is going to matter for the Cleveland Browns and their rivals in the AFC North. So cool stuff going there. Even cooler, the Kansas City Royals advanced to the American League Championship Series. Now, they have not been to the playoffs since 1985, and that's significant to me because the Royals are the beginning of my sports watching career. It was 1985. It was Bernie Kosar's rookie year. So I watched the Browns go 8-8. Kind of turned me on to sports because the Indians were nothing to be proud of, nothing to really hang your hat on as far as being a baseball fan is concerned. One of the games I remember from that year was on my birthday, July 11th. Dad and I are walking over from the Justice Center there at Ontario and Lakeside. And he said, we're playing George Brett and the Kansas City Royals. I said, well, why do you say it like that? Why don't you just say the Royals? He's like, usually with a superstar, you say, the superstar in the name of his team. Sure enough, Brett goes deep off Vern Rule in the top of the first inning. And that remained and of course, Dad gets to be right there and tells me I told you so. But he says that's why it's George Brett and the Kansas City Royals. Later that year, and just to tell you how long ago 29 years ago was, I remember my dad telling me that he watched one of the Royals playoff games. I'm not sure if it was an LCS game or an early game in the World Series against the Cardinals, but he basically got into it that he watched it that morning. I was like, well, the game was last night. Well, he got a VCR, which is just hilarious for me to think about that the whole life of the whole life cycle of videotapes has come and gone. Because videotape existed before 1985, but they really started popping up in houses in 85, 86. So, and that's the beginning of my sports watching career. So, you got the Royals playing the Orioles in the American League Championship Series. You have the Giants and the Cardinals in the National League Series. A little bit of controversy popped up just from a comparison of all things. We all know how successful the San Antonio Spurs organization is. We know how they do it without spending a lot of money, without a lot of big name talent. And the St. Louis baseball Cardinals draw that comparison, and I think it's fair. I know that Giants fans say, well, why don't you say it about us too? Because you go back the last 4 World Series, it's either been the Cardinals or the Giants representing the National League in the World Series. But here's the truth about the Giants. They're Johnny come lately. I know that 2010 wasn't that, was a couple years ago now. But this year we'll have, for the 5th year in a row, either the Giants or the Cardinals in the World Series. I think if you go back as far as the Spurs' success, as far as the Cardinals' success, if you try to put the Giants in there, it just doesn't line up because they've had so many bad years in between. I know that they were good in 2002, and then they won the World Series in 2010, but there was a long, dark period. Even though they had Tim Lincecum, and even though they were winning games, they weren't making the playoffs, and they weren't going, and they certainly weren't. They certainly weren't the St. Louis Cardinals. So I think that sustainability goes a long way for giving the Cardinals that high praise that they are like the San Antonio Spurs. All right. Anyway, that's enough professional sports. Let's talk a little bit about college football and how things went last weekend. The weekend started on Thursday. The Oregon Ducks hosted the Arizona Wildcats in a game that should be a big advantage for the home team, but Arizona would have no part of it. Second year in a row, they take down Oregon, but they do it in their place this time. They make Marcus Mariota, the Heisman candidate, look very pedestrian. And Rich Rodriguez has a good thing going. I think that he's, for the first time since West Virginia, which is really just to exclude his time at Michigan, he's really found a good fit for himself. And he's got his defensive coordinator. And they've, I think it's all about stops and running the football and keeping the Oregon offense off the field. And Arizona did a good job of that. And, they're the only undefeated team left in the Pac-12. Why are they the only undefeated team left in the Pac-12? We'll get to that in a second, because the SEC kind of held the Saturday morning spotlight. On Friday night, you had the game in Utah, the BYU-Utah State game. BYU trying to go undefeated, trying to not back into it, but play their way into the college football playoff. Not going to happen. They lost Taysom Hill. They lost the football game. I mean, in a heartbeat. This game goes from being 14-7 BYU to being 21-14 Utah State in a matter of 30 seconds on the game clock. So Friday night, the big upset. We're not. It's not like we're not used to Friday night upsets on ESPN in college football. But big blow for BYU, both in losing their starting quarterback and losing the football game, probably eliminating themselves from anything other than whatever bowl game that they're tied into without the aid of the college football playoffs. So good night BYU, not necessarily good night Oregon, but Oregon's going to have to fight their way back in the Pac-12. But let's get to Saturday. Let's get to Ole Miss, Alabama. This is a game that Ole Miss wouldn't go away. Alabama figured they could win it in the end. Blake Sims picked off in the end zone. Ole Miss runs the clock out. It's bedlam in Oxford, Mississippi. They tear down the goalpost. The broadcast had to go away after the post-game interviews, and there were still people trying to get on the field in I want to say Biloxi, but I know it's Oxford, Mississippi. So maybe the biggest event of the day in Mississippi, probably the biggest event in 25 years in the state of Mississippi. But Mississippi State down there in Stark Vegas would like to argue that their win over Texas A&M was a big deal. Dak Prescott skyrocketed himself into the Heisman conversation, and Texas A&M just undefeated, blew out South Carolina. I think we got excited about them too early. They could score a lot of points, but they made a potent offense like they met in Dan Mullen's Mississippi State offense, led by Dak Prescott. They had a different thing coming. So the SEC West doesn't go through Alabama anymore. It goes into the state of Alabama, because I still think the Auburn Tigers, after their big win over LSU, who probably doesn't belong in the conversation with all those SEC West powers, which is such a different thing. I mean, it's LSU and Arkansas are kind of afterthoughts at this point. Crazy to think about it. And, Alabama's got nothing guaranteed to them. I mean, they came into the season on a 2-game losing streak, losing the Iron Bowl to Auburn, losing the Sugar Bowl to Oklahoma, who fell from the ranks of undefeated TCU. But, as far as the SEC West goes, I think it's Auburn's to lose. I think they've got a very tough challenges ahead of them in not only Mississippi, but Mississippi State, Alabama. They've got their share of challenges, and Arkansas is no slouch either. Arkansas is a good team. They just play in a very, very good division in a very, very good conference. So you got all that going on. You've got Oklahoma, who couldn't win in Fort Worth against TCU. I think TCU is a little bit of a pretender. That was a big upset for TCU, though they're undefeated. Baylor knocked off Texas going away. Those two teams will match up, and the winner is going to really control their own destiny in the Big 12. I don't think it's TCU. I think it's Baylor all the way. I think Oklahoma is going to put up a good fight, and I wouldn't count on Texas or even Texas Tech going away. But It's definitely Baylor's to lose, but they got to beat Oklahoma. They got to beat Oklahoma State. Those could be some difficult roadblocks. Out west, oh man, you got to play 60 minutes of football, guys. Stanford leads Notre Dame late. Notre Dame gets the late touchdown pass inside of a minute to go. So Stanford suffers another loss. So that's that's curtains for the Cardinal. Arizona State trying to bounce back after the big loss to UCLA a couple of weeks ago on Thursday night in their own house. They go into the Coliseum, pretty much get beat down for about 3.5 quarters by USC, and then USC just refused to close the game out. So backup quarterback Mike Bercovici throws a Hail Mary pass. Jalen Strong comes out of nowhere, walks into the end zone. Arizona State pulls off I would call it an upset in the Coliseum just because they're on the road. Probably two evenly matched teams on a neutral site, but Arizona State gets the big win. So USC goes down. The nightcap that was Utah and UCLA, and Utah, they threw something I don't think UCLA was expecting out on when Travis Wilson didn't play the whole game. They went with Thompson, the more athletic, the running quarterback, and UCLA just couldn't hang, and 30-28 Utah wins. So leaves Arizona as the only undefeated team in the Pac-12, and they got a big one this weekend with USC coming into Arizona Stadium down there in Tucson. As far as the rest of this week's game, BYU became a throwaway game on Thursday by virtue of their loss. Washington State, I actually cut the end of the Washington State-Cal game, which was 60-59. I think that one of the things that I don't like to see is when you're down by one, running the clock out because you don't trust your defense to kick the last-second field goal. Don't like it at all. Came back to bite Mike Leach in Washington State. Cal wins 60-59 up in the Palouse. Anyway, the Cougars are looking to bounce back against Stanford, and Stanford's going to figure to be pretty angry. So that one might not go very well for Washington State, or they might just score points in bunches and we'll watch Kevin Hogan and Stanford try to play in a shootout with them. But I would suspect that Stanford steps it up on defense, and it's a long night for Mike Leach and the Washington State Cougars. The big game on Saturday is going to be Auburn at Mississippi State. Winner obviously controls their destiny in the SEC West, but it's gotten to the point with college football, and especially in the SEC, where you win every week. That's all you can do. You can't really talk about controlling your destiny because everybody controls their destiny going into the season, and it's just losing games where you lose track of it. Ole Miss goes to Texas A&M. I don't think Texas A&M is a big opponent, but Kyle Fields a big advantage. I still like Ole Miss. I still like Bo Wallace. I like everything that Hugh Freeze has done. Obviously big week, big 2 weeks in a row for the state of Mississippi, but they put themselves in this position. So that's a good thing if you're I don't even know what to call Mississippi. I know they play the Egg Bowl, but I don't think it's the Egg State. Somebody could probably correct me on that. Over the Big 12, you got that TCU Baylor game. I like Baylor. I just think that I like that Gary Patterson's a good football coach. I like that Art Briles is a good football coach. But I think that Baylor has just kind of put their program up on a little higher echelon. Obviously, there's the big boys. There's Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, and everybody else in the Big 12 for that matter. But I'm looking at Baylor, and I'm looking at them putting themselves in a golden position. They still got to beat Oklahoma, and that's a tall order. I mentioned USC at Arizona. I think the USC will be deflated. I think that Arizona will be elated, and I like the Wildcats in this one. I think that Rich Rodriguez is really going to make a name for himself this season in the Pac-12. Even if you don't really consider them the front runner in the Pac-12 South or the best team in the Pac-12 South for that matter, the record speaks volumes. So look for Arizona to stay undefeated with the men of Troy coming into their house. Red River shootout at the Cotton Bowl, not a big deal. Both teams lost last week. I like Oklahoma in that one. Georgia and Missouri, this game was big on paper in August, but the SEC East, I mean, what do you even think of the SEC East at this point? They're just going to be the team that loses to the SEC West champion in the SEC Conference Championship. But what happens in the SEC East can dictate whether the SEC gets one or two teams into the 14 playoff, and that'll be big. And then out here not out here specifically, but out west, you have Oregon and UCLA, both trying to rebound after losses, maybe unacceptable losses in their own minds. But loser is probably done, and the starting quarterback probably knocks himself out of the Heisman race there. Marcus Mariota looked pedestrian against Arizona. Hundley didn't look bad. Brett Hundley didn't look bad against Utah, but he's going to need a monster performance for everybody to kind of pick up where they left off after UCLA beat Arizona State in Tempe on September 25th. So that's the big weekend of college football. I can't wait to see it. That's all I've got on this topic this week. A little bit of plug time, Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. That's 8 a.m. out west. Sportsbyline.com. Find it on the TuneIn Radio app or on your Cox cable system. It is CRN channel or CRN2. And we do simulcast live on the Cox cable system there. So also a big announcement, I will be covering the NFL for More Than a Fan. I've previously written for them. I am back. I will write a regular Monday afternoon column at 2 Eastern, so that's 11 out west. I'm looking forward to doing that, kind of recapping all of the NFL action. Haven't done that in a while, so look for that. So Sports Byline on Sunday morning, morethanafan.net on Monday afternoon. But that's gonna do it for this week's episode of The Mistake by the Mic. This was the third episode, and that's all it is.